Hi, I'm Bart from Craft-Bilt. Welcome to this installation video for our aluminum decking. We're here in the training area, a mezzanine in our factory here at Craft-Bilt, so you may from time to time hear some background noise coming from the warehouse, cutting and punching and whatnot. Today's installation will be for deck boards installed perpendicular to the house. Let's get started. So when you're installing decking on your house, there are two ways to orient your boards. They could be oriented parallel to the house or perpendicular to the house. Today's installation will be about perpendicular. Perpendicular is an option because a deck typically slopes away from the house about 1/8 of an inch per foot. Craft-Bilt decking has the internal gutter. So the best watertight feature will be when the boards are perpendicular to the house, because that gutter will be sloping away from the house. So what we have here is a representation of the deck on the back of your house. You're ultimately responsible to make sure that the deck that you build meets your local building code. A typical deck has joists perpendicular to the house. So what you'll notice here is that we have this strapping going across. If you're going to install your decking perpendicular and you orient your joists the typical way, you'll need to have this strapping. You can see here that these joists are 16 inches apart, which is typical. And you'll see that the strapping is about 24 inches. Craft-Bilt decking is so strong, our test report is actually based on 24-inch center. So that's the max you could space your strapping. You could orient your joists parallel to the house, in which case you would not require this strapping. But most decks are built conventionally, joists perpendicular, and in the case of a perpendicular deck system, you'll need to apply that strapping. Please make sure to read and follow our decking installation guides. Also, make sure you follow your railing manufacturer's installation information. In the case of Craft-Bilt, we have engineering reports and installation guides that show you how to install the railing properly, including the required blocking. So make sure when you're building your deck that you don't forget the blocking for your posts. Craft-Bilt's deck boards lock together to form a watertight surface. But what do we mean by watertight? That means that for an application like a walkout basement, this is a great product. What can happen in the wintertime is ice could form in your hidden gully, which inhibits the ability of the water to run to the end of your deck. Now, for a walkout basement, that might mean a few drips that show up underneath the deck because some meltwater occurred on the top, but it couldn't escape because of some ice in the gutter. But you're not using your walkout basement in the wintertime. And when the warm weather returns, the watertight features will all come back. Please remember that Craft-Bilt aluminum decking should not be used as roofing over living space. Now let's see this deck getting installed. For your walkout basement, you may be happy placing the deck boards directly on your strapping, but for best water control, we recommend flashing the perimeter. Tack your flashing in place with a roofing nail. You should be familiar with good flashing principles, which typically means starting your flashing at the low point and working your way up. Make sure you silicone all of your overlaps. I put on a little too much silicone, I'll just wipe that off. So our flashing is all done. A nice thing about bending a flash like this is that when you're done, you can create a mating flash that slips underneath and trims out your rim joist. If you don't have access to flashing, there is a product that has an aluminum backer bonded to a roofing membrane. Check with your Craft-Bilt representative. Now let's get to some decking. Cut your boards so they are about 1/4 inch away from the house and flush with the edge of your deck. Pre-drill your F channel and deck boards with a 7/32 drill bit. As an extra measure of water protection, you may elect to apply a silicone bead to prevent water from wicking back into the structure. Secure your F channel and deck boards with the number 10 stainless screws provided. Even though your deck has a 1/8 per foot slope, you must caulk the hidden gutter where the boards interlock at the house. Make sure your deck has no dips or valleys. Shim your strapping to suit. Make sure the screws are seated completely, but do not over tighten, as you could snap the heads off, especially when using impact drills. Don't worry about the slight deflection in the first board. That will come out when your posts are installed. Most decks are made in 1 foot increments, and as we know, the deck board is 6 inches across. That means your last deck board will typically be ripped somewhere in this area. This tongue has to be removed. Now in the case of this deck, it was built about 2 inches bigger than the foot, and you can see that there's an unsupported edge of the decking. And when that happens, you just support it underneath with the F channel. The next part of our decking installation is the nosing that goes around the perimeter. Now the nosing has a rib here, as you can see, and that rib should not block water coming out of the hidden gutter. The rib should be about 1/16 of an inch away from the gutter. You'll end up with about a 3/16 of an inch space between the drop leg of the nosing and your rim joist. Okay, our nosings have been mitered. We've dry fit them to make sure everything's going to look nice. For the most waterproof installation, we do recommend that you apply a sealant underneath the nosing before you screw it down. Screw the nosing down, making sure that the screws will not interfere with your post locations. Space the screws 2 or 3 feet apart. Self-adhering membranes are fantastic waterproofing products. They're known by trade names like Ice and Water Shield or Blue Skin. Take your Ice and Water Shield and go over your decking about 1 inch, and then up behind your siding a few inches or along your masonry for a few inches. Cover your membrane with aluminum flashing. The aluminum flashing provides yet another level of water protection and protects the membrane from the UV. Your flashing will extend up behind your siding, or it may have a return bent into it that goes into a saw cut along your brick, or you may use some other accepted flashing method. Please note that the roofing membrane and flashing will be sourced locally. So, perpendicular installation is the most waterproof installation, and we've tried to show you all of the things you can do to make it as waterproof as possible. Now, for a walkout basement, did you really have to do all of these things? Could you have eliminated the flashing and just used one of our aluminum angles with some silicone at the house? That's for you to decide. In case you haven't noticed already, we've been using our sand and gray decking color. That's a wrap of the Craft-Bilt perpendicular deck installation video. Thanks for watching.